There we are, Holyoke Media. Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. Today is Monday. Wow, it feels like it might already be Tuesday. It's Monday, May 19th at 6:04 p.m. This is the first of 3 City Council budget hearings. Thank you to all of our department heads that are here this evening. I am joined in council chambers by Councilor Jenny Rivera, Councilor Carmen Ocasio, Councilor Linda Bacon, Councilor Megan McGrath-Smith. We have Councilor Patty Devine. We have Councilor Howie Graney, and I just want to make sure I don't miss anyone. Any other councilors online? Councilor Jordan is not able to join us this evening because his son is graduating from college. So congratulations. And yes, we love that. So, this evening is the first of 3 budget hearings. So thank you to the mayor for making yourself available. We have just a couple small changes to the order that we're going tonight, just logistically. Typically, we start our, just historically, I think, at least with Mayor Garcia, we've been doing this budget and projection revenue forecasting, and we have our consultant, TJ Plant, comes in. He was at the last minute unable to present this evening, and so he will be joining us next Wednesday at our second budget hearing. And so instead of having that presentation first, we will, we'll still learn what we need to learn, and counselors will be able to ask questions. And so that's just one small thing. And then just out of respect to our city solicitor, who is tuning in from her son's baseball game, which is also equally as important. Thank you for making the time to be here, but we don't want to force you to sit in your car and wait, so we are thankful that you were able to make it. And I'm hoping that it's okay with folks if we just have actually the solicitor's department go first. And I will read the page numbers. I'll do my best to give you the correct page numbers. But we'll go through each department this evening, and department heads who are here, you can present, let us know, give us a heads up if there's anything that you want us to know about in advance. Otherwise, counselors, if you do have questions this evening, I just ask that you reference the object codes. If you're referring to a specific line item within the budget, it just kind of helps us follow along better. And I will do my best to be your cruise guide, cruise director on that as well, and what pages we are on. So the solicitor's office is on page 9 in your books. And I'm going to first, Attorney Ball, if there's anything that you want to address. Otherwise, I will open things up to questions from counselors. So this is page 9.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Okay, I'm just having some trouble where I am here.
Sounds great.
Madam President?
Yes, Councilor Devine.
I don't have a question. I have a compliment to the law department.
Okay.
And how hard they work. And we're always asking you to do something. So I just want to tell you I appreciate all of you.
Thank you. Do other folks have questions? Councilor McGrath-Smith.
Thank you, Madam President. I would just love to hear just a brief and brilliant overview, just a minute or less of just the highlights, what's different from last year, if there's a change, why is it different?
Sure. I think the only real major change is that we have less that we're requesting in outside counsel this year. Last year we had a request for 120,000. I asked for 100,000 this year, and then after speaking further with the mayor, I asked him to cut it even further to 85,000. I think that might be the lowest I can remember being in an outside counsel line in a long time. And that is because so much of the work is getting done inside the law department. I know all of you got the litigation update that we sent to council about a month back. We have 2 or 3 cases in federal district court, 3 or 4 cases in superior court, several in Holyoke district court, a couple in the appeals court, one that recently just resolved at the Civil Service Commission. And all of those cases are being handled in-house along with, everything else that we do. So I don't anticipate that we're going to go over that amount. And it was for that reason that I asked that the mayor consider giving some bumps to people in the office since they are doing the work. It is at a significant savings to the city, given what the solicitors make in-house versus what we would be paying if we were paying outside counsel, something between $250 and $400 an hour. So there is a huge savings to the city, and I just ask that that be passed on to the attorneys that are in the office doing the work.
Thank you.
Counselor Bacon?
Thank you. Just a quick question. There's been some confusion about the ordinance and the updating in Muni Code relative to the staffing in your department. Can you just let us know what the current ordinance should be?
I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but I believe, I do know that the budget reflects 2 full-time assistants, 1 part-time assistant, and a part-time associate. I'd have to pull up Municode to see exactly what it says, but I believe Municode, whatever section it is, says that the law department can have up to 3 assistants.
Okay, thanks. We'll have time to look at it. Thank you.
I just want to note that we are joined on Zoom by Counselor Anderson Burgos. Does anyone else have anything to ask? All righty. Seeing none, I'm going to thank Attorney Ball for her time and thank counselors for their questions. Of course, if something comes up between now and then, just feel free to reach out to the department heads. But with that, I think we can move on to the next department, which is...
Thank you, Tessa. And I was going to, you took the words out of my mouth. If anyone thinks of any other questions that they have, please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to any of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the next one we have is the Disabilities Commission, and this is actually a new hearing for me and us as a body, I believe. And Mayor, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add. You had reached out and said that it made sense for us to have this opportunity. So we're also joined by Lynn Horan, who's on the Disabilities Commission, the chair. So thank you, Lynn, for being here. And if there's anything that you want to briefly provide information on what's, this.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Page number.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Councilor Graney. The Commission on Disabilities is page 53. Oh, and thank you, Jeffrey. Jeffrey's pulling everything up on the screen as well for those who are tuning in remotely. So yeah, I will turn this over to, Mayor, if you want to
Sure.
kick it off, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you so much, Madam President. We do have here the chair of the Disabilities Commission and also our personnel director per ordinance offers staff support to the Disabilities Commission, who will go in much detail, but obviously, like the president just said, that this is a new budget form added. We've never had this before, but certainly Lynn is here to explain in more detail the intent and answer any questions that the council might have. Make sure your mic's on.
Yep. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Hi, I am Lynn Horan, Chair of the Commission on Disability of Holyoke. And first of all, I want to thank all the City Council members for allowing us to participate in this hearing and hopefully support a new budget for the Commission. As well as we have met with our mayor and have been very grateful for his ear and support as well. So, yeah, it is a new budget. For many years, Holyoke, since the ADA, and we formed a municipal commission on disability per state law, we have accrued funds from the fines on violations of handicap parking. It has generally gone into the general fund. And what we are trying to do first is to create a budget within our city through our mayor's support and you all so that we can access these funds. And the commission believes this is really important because we are a very large marginalized group. I always like to start off anything very quickly with giving statistics, or at least the general statistics, and the organizations that support them. Disabled people are the largest marginalized group in the world per the World Health Organization. We are the largest marginalized group in the country per the CDC. We are the largest marginalized group in the state of Massachusetts, according to the census, as well as in Hampden County and Holyoke. We are also the most diverse, which should be our superpower, but sadly we have these obstacles more because of lack of access to health care for those folks who are LGBTQ+, for those folks who are people of color, and so we also are, again, one of the most diverse groups of people in our city. And we are in need right now, and maybe always have been, of course, but especially with the upcoming cuts with the federal government. We know we will be hit especially hard. So we're looking to our local government for supporting us in these particular categories that I will explain to you that we're looking at for help. And again, these are fines that have been accrued, and thanks to our enforcement officers, we've actually accrued quite a fair amount of money considering other cities doing the same thing for a budget. So the items that we're looking at also coordinate with state law as well, so that we know that we are using them in the way that we legally should be and that we know is also helpful. So starting off with the first budget item category we're looking at is the basic needs of the commission. And that would include particularly one of the things that we are dictated to do to represent our disabled residents is education. Education of the public, education of those constituents and residents who are disabled as to what sort of resources they may go to. We are allowed and should be directing them to that. And we would like to have a survey first time of the disabled needs of our residents, so that data helps, facts help. When you know how many folks we have that are disabled in the city, then we can also find out what their needs are and how indeed we can help them. And that again comes back to these fines would not be there if they weren't for a disability law, an infraction of that law. So we feel like those funds are best used to help our disabled residents, people like myself, by the way, who want to maintain independence, work when they can, take care of their families, get to their doctor's appointments, and participate in meaningful, valuable ways in their community. So again, the survey will help us find out what those needs are. And we'll also be going on working with some community organizations as well to find out where these folks are, because you often don't see disabled people. I hear that all the time when I ask, are you accessible? Well, we don't have anybody that needs the shelter that's in a wheelchair. Well, you don't see that because they can't get in the building. So these kind of things are really important, and we'll also possibly add slightly to that, but that particular aspect of our budget items, we are allotting initially $1,500 to, so shouldn't be too terrible. The next one is a big one, accessible transportation. And by that, we divide that in two categories. One is that we know that Medicaid in the past, for instance, has been very helpful, not in just giving food through programs and medical care itself, but transportation. A lot of people do not know that. One of the reasons I know that is one of our members on our budget committee, Marlene Connor, was a former transit authority, so she's quite aware of just how much accessible transportation is important and how big an impact if Medicaid gets hit. This will be people who need the MTV buses and transportation in order to get to dialysis, for instance, to doctor's appointments, to take their kids to doctor's appointments. So we feel like there's a way we can work with the transit system to at least add a little bit to their budget for that. The other item would be, we have discussed with the senior center and Neve, who is here today. In fact, I have to say, when I look at the list of people on this budget, I see a lot of compadres that moved and worked together to really benefit a lot of people in need. And Neve is certainly one of them. And we have discussed with her about ways that and are still in the process of review with her about ways that we can be supportive in accessible transportation for the senior center and seniors in particular. The third item is aid to students who are disabled. So in that, we're looking at services in terms of aids or help. Again, a contributory thing that we might do to help support them in terms of services, and also tools and equipment that kids that are disabled may need. And we know they need them. And we have talked to a number of people within the education department who are working with disabled students now, and where those needs fall as well. Also have to say, concerns again about them losing federal funding. So good timing for us to do this locally. And then the last thing is accessible structures in Holyoke. So that can include playgrounds, some facilities. We know that the state already provides some grant processes for public buildings to get help to meet ADA standards, which we hope to be doing in the future as well. But there may be some ways that we can chip in and help in the meantime as we wait for those processes to happen. Again, accessibility is just a massive part of getting into any participation, or even as we're lucky enough to have this building here accessible, there still are structures that aren't. So that's, it's pretty simple right now, the way we're looking at it. We aren't asking for all the money that's accrued initially anyway. We feel like this is a fair amount, and it will really, really help this group of people be even more valuable in their community as we go forward in tough times. And if anybody has any questions, feel free. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Graney?
Yes, quickly, thank you for serving the disabled people. Just a quick question. We could start really at home here by improving the entrance to this City Hall down there. There's a lot of bumps and bruises to get up over those things when people are coming in a wheelchair or pulling a wheelchair. I can file an ordinance to do something about that, but it certainly is problematic to get a wheelchair, especially if it's a transport chair, into this building. And that's the only handicapped entrance that we have to the building.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And you all know, and the mayor knows even better than I do, that we are a city of not exorbitant revenue with a lot of need. And budgets are not easy, but I think this is really an area that we have to look at. And I would also say, on a side note, I've been, as my husband has been, involved in the city's comp plan too. And so we're also discussing in terms of curb cuts, sidewalks, and things like that, places and ways that we can make this issue really come back out. So much is education, isn't it? Your wife certainly understands that. You do, I do. That even when I was walking for 20 years on a crutch, or 25 years on a crutch before I went to the wheelchair in the last 8 years, I thought I knew everything about obstacles with disability, and it's a whole nother ballgame. We just did the police doors, by the way. They are finished. They are now handicapped accessible, again, thanks to the mayor's efforts and the city. And we've got some curb cuts to take care of in front of that building. We have to work within state law, to my understanding, as well as city law, as to how we use these funds. But what I'm really hoping, Councilor Greeny, is that this begins to put us out there too, that people know not only about the Commission on Disability, but I find this group that most people really don't have a clue of what it's like to go through our daily business and the obstacles we face, and many of them societal. They can be corrected. So I'm hoping that even getting this budget begins to gain us a little more limelight, and folks like you all is too. So, and again, please always contact the commission itself anytime you have interests or questions like that as well.
Thank you. Councilor McGrath-Smith?
Thank you, Madam President. I have a few questions because it is new, and so there are some maybe more generic questions and some specific questions. My first question is just sort of the backstory on the parking funding that has been collected through these violations. And I can see that's an annual budget here for $36,000 is what's being proposed, but I also heard you say that that's not even how much has been accrued in total. I'm wondering how much is accrued generally per year, and if $36,000 is, what portion of it is that? And is this a one-time request, or will this continue to be around $36,000 every year moving forward?
So, both good questions. So first of all, and I should have brought those figures, but one of the first things I did when we met with the mayor was to speak with both, contact both the treasurer's office and the auditor, and ask for just the last 5 years. And so it varies, but from what I can tell, it can go about 50,000 right now, but it has gone well above that and twice as much about that in the past. And again, even in the last 5 years, we also had COVID, so that was a little bit different year. People weren't out driving as much. But that's where I say there's quite a bit more, and I would certainly be glad to submit the figures that were given to me to you all as well. Yeah, great. All right.
Yeah, Madam President,
Yeah.
Lori can just go over the revenue on tickets.
Sure. And then, yes.
Yeah, I have them here. I already have them pulled up. Yep, so, and Lynn is right as far as kind of the timeliness of it all. So right now, we don't segregate out the revenue. All parking ticket revenue is parking ticket revenue. It doesn't delineate between handicap or other types of other kinds of revenue. So I'll just give you what those numbers are. And we do budget for this. So as we're talking about the recap and budgeting revenue, I just want to make sure everybody understands that. And of course, the commission does as well. So in fiscal 23, we budgeted $120,000. That's what we expected to receive. We actually received $159,865. So there's a surplus of revenue of $39,000 and change. In fiscal 24, same thing. We budgeted $130,000. We received greater than that, to the tune of $43,286. So that's the total amount of parking ticket revenue. But then when we get into the actual numbers, Laura, our tax collector, had run a report because she actually processes all the parking tickets in her office. The system she has does delineate the types of tickets, and so she had sent that over. And so what we've actually taken in, meaning tickets that hadn't been voided or disposed of for some other reason, we actually have taken in $135,000 in handicap parking tickets since fiscal 21. And there's 45,000 outstanding right now. So that means there's $45,000 worth of parking tickets that haven't been paid back to the city. Honestly, we normally see those types of revenues when people are trying to get their registration renewed or their license renewed, and there's an indicator with the RMV. So we would expect to see those funds come in. So we're talking, close to $200,000. The numbers that we're talking about are on par because it is a $300 fine. The bulk of that parking revenue that we receive is from handicap parking. I don't have the exact dollar amount just because of the way the reporting numbers come in, but that was the information that was given for them to design this budget.
Thank you. I have a few folks. Are you good, Councillor McGrath-Smith? Did that answer your question?
Well, I had one more question that was just around, is this, the assumption that it will be $36,000 this one time, or is this the assumption that we're creating a precedent that we're going to have around this amount every year?
So part of what Lynn has pointed out to me, I had no idea, and what she's going to be working on and pursuing with the council is for the city to adopt Mass General Law that redirects those fines. When we collect $300 fines, it goes directly to the commission. That doesn't exist now. It goes into the general fund. We budget accordingly. And so essentially what we're trying to do is work with Lynn toward that, assuming there's an appetite with the council. Obviously, we're on the mercy of the council. If whether or not that has to be adopted, or if it doesn't, maybe we do it anyways, or that can go. Those conversations are going to happen. And this is a starter right now to say, okay, well, let's see if we can put it into practice to see how it even works. If whether or not it's sufficient to be dictated. The commission just laid out those two budget lines you see, how exactly they're looking for to spend each dollar, and if whether or not it's even equitable or enough, right, to accommodate the things that they're trying to do and so forth. So there's going to be more conversations to see if it's feasible at all. Maybe it isn't, maybe it is. So this is just to get them started.
And I would add to that, so what the mayor is referring to is by state law, we are allowed and they encourage an independent budget based on those fines. And so I have also been working on that and with those state officials at the Massachusetts Office on Disability. Then we've been going by basically a Bible that they use a consortium from that has written up as a guideline for how to go about that. And in that, it's very specific, as I said, what sorts of things you can actually use the money for, which actually helps us stay in parameters and kind of has helped us form what we did in going to the mayor. We knew that process, and you all should have received, I believe, soon, if not by now, a request for that from the city council, because that will also, the independent budget will require your, an order of approval for that as well, and then to the mayor. So that's a longer process. So this is all very complex. So I think the best way to describe it is the mayor has known about us also wanting to do that. And to answer your question, hopefully that would be an ongoing thing. So far, I mean, I only took 5 of the years figures that Rory gave us. And we know statistically that we're actually doing a lot better than a lot of municipalities who have been granted an independent budget for their Commission on Disability. So I think it is doable. I think maybe that what we might see with time is this can be something more consistent. And as the mayor said, as we work and see how that will happen. Thank you. That will help us. In the meantime, the way that I see it is we know that the independent budget is a process that's more complex and will take more time. And we knew the mayor's budget, of course, is coming up now. So what we're hoping for with your support, because our need is so strong right now, that we can get something from our budget now with your approval for this fiscal year starting in July. And I'm just proving how disabled I am, apparently, or just klutzy. Thank you. See what a community we are of helpers. So
What was on the back of his sweatshirt?
no,
Emergency management.
There you go.
Lynn, does
that's perfect. We may have to get more of those then. But so if that answers your question, and I do want to again say it's somewhat complex in that sense, but this is a process in terms of the independent budget that has been done by many municipalities, and we'll be able to give you more information as we go through that process, that you can look at models of other cities and how they've gone about this. So and again, in our need now, and it is strong. People in my situation are really petrified about losing their independence and homes for very, very real reasons. So again, I commend the mayor, because this has been a possibility for a Commission on Disability to have at any point during the time that they have been accruing the funds. And this mayor is the first mayor to open up this discussion, and I think that's really pretty amazing, and we're very appreciative of it, and hopefully of you all too. So does that answer the future?
Do you have follow-up? Okay.
You had said that if we accepted the Mass General Law, and I know that's a longer process that's coming, that as attached to the independent budget, there were parameters for funding. Without accepting the Mass state general law and creating the independent budget, does the commission still fall underneath the same frameworks for expenditures?
That, I would say, would be probably similar. Do we have bylaws for that? Because we have not had that before.
So, in the budget, there are two lines. We broke it down: professional services and supplies and equipment. And they have a budget sheet here that Lynn just went over describing professional services. So they want to do a survey, and they want to, there was something else there. You know, they're able to spend within that, you know, the expenditure, you know, what they want to do, whether if they're independent or not, or within our own process, as long as they're, you know, spending within the confinements of what the line allows you to spend, what the council approves to spend. So there are no real restrictions there.
And the advantages I would add to that too, from my understanding and talking with state officials about the independent budget, is that it would allow us a little more flexibility within the budget. So for instance, in the course of a year, should we have a sudden emergency or something, that we might want to change the amount from one of those itemized groups to the other, then that is possible.
For the supplies and equipment line, you had mentioned services, tools, and equipment. And I'm imagining that could be things that are related to municipal buildings in terms of access, but are you also imagining it might be direct equipment to people who are, for example, needing a cane, needing something that they can't get access to? I know you mentioned federal funding being decreased and the fears that people have. Are we imagining the funding might be used in direct support of people who come to the commission and ask, or is this more funding that would be used for municipal programming or buildings?
So again, which category were you referring to?
I think it's underneath supplies and
So
equipment.
on their budget, Lynn, they have just supplies and equipment.
Okay, for the
On the
city.
list
This
in
is
front of
object
us,
code 54220.
they're talking about aid to students who are disabled. So of that $22,000 that reflect there,
It's
$7,000 for aid to students who are disabled, which includes equipment needed
good, it didn't break.
to participate in education or teaching assistance aids, according to this. And then there's also accessible city buildings, grounds that serve community of $15,000. Accessible playgrounds, installing a
Right.
handicap door on a public building, things of that nature. So that's what's totaling that $22,000, according to what's been presented.
Can I make a comment also? Meg, I think after we do the survey, we'll know a lot more about the needs of folks. Like, we didn't know the police door wasn't handicap accessible until Lynn pointed it out. I know that it was hard to open myself as an able-bodied person, but we didn't know until somebody who wasn't able to open it herself, like, discovered that. So we're hoping the survey is going to let us know what the community needs, because if they're not asked, they're probably not going to tell us unless they have support, like, you know, Lynn does. So,
And, you know, supposedly in the dictates, again, from state for what commissions and our own bylaws for what commissions on disability can do, we're not supposed to be able to just pull out one individual person, so to speak. And that's why we've broken down these, and you hear me refer to the 4 categories because that's for the independent budget. And again, the city's not done this before, so they have to accommodate that. So it's a little foreign to me as I've been trying to navigate both of these kind of things and where the parallels are. But in terms of services, yeah, as Kelly has accurately said, we will find that out with the survey. We also have already found it out in the process in the years that I've been on and in the years that and the months that we've been working on this whole budget idea for about 6 or 7 months within the commission. And we are already doing the investigation, but we're also by dealing with each of these categories that the state has, it's helpful because theirs is tried and true. And so they know where these are best utilized. So it has helped educate us, and that's why the categories looking at both, and I have a copy too here of, if anybody wants to have it today, of what we'll be presenting to you for the independent budget that goes into a little more detail as well.
Thank you.
But hopefully I'm answering your question, that it is going to be somewhat ongoing, but we already know quite a bit.
So,
And again, one last thing I would say, remember that we are required by state law that our members are predominantly disabled themselves or a caretaker. We live it every day. And I have talked to the education department as well for their specifics.
so I've got several folks in the queue. I have Councilor Ocasio, Councilor Graney, Councilor Bacon, Councilor Devine, and Councilor Rivera. So just want to be mindful of time. We'll start with Councilor Ocasio.
I only have one question. When you guys start collecting this data, do you guys also include the disabled, homeless people out here in the city?
Yeah, I imagine we will, and in fact, Carmen, I know we'll be seeing more of you too, because we want to go downtown more, and it's where the needs are much stronger. I live in a middle-class neighborhood. I can afford a mobility van for my chair. My chair would cost $50,000 if it wasn't for being able to afford insurance for it. So we know that there are a lot of voices there that haven't been heard in terms of disability. So yeah, we'll be going mostly to communities that you've worked within, La Esperanza, and all of the different, La Familia, will be going into those communities more, both to win their trust, to let them know that we're there and we're here for them, but also to give them an opportunity to speak. So that's another part of the education part that we'll be doing. So we know nobody wants to fill out a survey. And if we do a 75-question survey, nobody's going to do that. So we want to go in and speak with folks who are living with this all the time in our city. It's a private thing, too. And it's a personal thing, and it's even cultural. And so that's kind of the process that we'll be doing first, if that helps. And so, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Graney?
Yeah, obviously, you're speaking to the choir when you're speaking to me, but, accessibility to buildings, and on the other hand, to be able to evacuate from a building is another situation in case of emergencies. The first thing you do when you walk into a building and you get into the building is say, how can I get out of here if I have to? So there are a lot of things that are involved in it. And when you look at a $36,000 budget and you put it in perspective, that's less than $1 for each resident of Holyoke. So, I think something like this is definitely needed. A survey is definitely needed, and I will support it 100%. And of course, Narve at the Council on Aging is very helpful. If residents have a situation that they may need, they can call the Council on Aging. Trish, the nurse over there, is very accommodating. They have a wonderful facility over there for our residents, and they do a great job. So just that's out there for information too.
Thank you. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. I just have a couple of quick technical questions.
Sure.
So I'm thinking if we're going to do something like this, and our mayor and our treasurer, I guess, might speak to this, it seems like we might have to set up a revolving fund if we don't have another way of moving the money, because it's all going into the general fund right now. But so that's just a general question for, if we're going to do this, how would we structurally set it up? to stream the collections into these lines, just as that. And then I'm just wondering, because all these revenues were going into the general fund, which budget is the offset if we're moving the 36,000 over here? Which budget is it coming out of that it used to go into?
Yeah, those are two great questions. So, and pretty much the same answer. So these revenues don't get budgeted to a specific department.
Okay.
When you're looking at the recap sheet, and we get into the conversations, and we can get more into this when we have the projections and the auditors here, and we're really breaking down that recap.
Yeah.
You look at other departmental revenue or other revenues that we budget for. So everything from building permits to licenses in the clerk's office to, unknowns, right? The excise tax that we're going to take in from marijuana. All of those things get budgeted for as revenue, just straight general
On the recap
revenue
sheet.
on the recap sheet. And so we call that general fund revenue. This is part of it. So it's not necessarily taking away from one budget and adding it. What it is that rather than where it really impacts would be, how much more money do we need to raise on the levy? How much more, revenue is being offset. So if this wasn't here,
It would come off the recap sheet.
exactly, yes, it would. It becomes part of the equation of the recap sheet.
Right.
Now, as far as a revolving fund or anything else, if the council and the city were to adopt that separate state law, then you might get into the conversation about needing a revolving fund, because then you would have to be tracking those receipts specific to that fund, like we do now for the the vacant building registration,
Right.
the recycling fees and things like that.
Right, but how would we know? We wouldn't really have a way of knowing.
We don't need to do that now. If we were to adopt that state law, then we would have to, and it would be a whole different accounting structure. We wouldn't be
Right.
counting those revenues as part of general fund at all. So right now, where we might budget, we did, I run over those numbers, we budgeted $130,000 last year. We received, $42,000 more than that. We would want to budget however much less.
Correct.
Right? So it could be 36,000, it might be 50,000 less, whatever that number is.
Right.
We would want to budget less.
But it seems like we'd still want to have some way of tracking it.
Oh, 100%.
Because
And in
otherwise,
fact,
it's just going
just-
into the,
this conversation in and of itself, we're going to, as we're building out new structures, accounting structures within Munis, we are going to start tracking this revenue in a segregated way, even if nothing else were to change, just so we could do better reporting on it.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
And I was just reading the Mass General Law here, and that separate account that would be created where the funds would go into annually, the accountant is to submit to the council and the mayor annual reports of that account.
Documenting.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what that MGL is? For
Yeah, I'll email it to you right now.
Okay, thanks.
Or should I, Madam President, should I mail it to everybody? Or
You-
how you want me to
It's
handle
up to you. Sure. For the
I'll
sake
forward
of-
it to Jeffrey, and then he can.
Okay.
There you go.
Sounds good to me.
Thank
Are you good, Counselor?
Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Devine, and then Counselor Rivera.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted people to know that I did file an order to have that Mass General Laws put into finance. So it'll come up tomorrow, and my next finance meeting is the 27th, and Lynn's aware of that. So a lot of questions that you have tonight, we can also do on the 27th.
Thank you. And Counselor Israel Rivera.
Thank you. Just for clarification, if it goes to finance, then does it have to come back to ordinance?
I don't know, to
change
be honest with
the
you.
law?
I mean, we can figure
Yeah.
that out. I don't really know off the top of my head right this second, but we can
All right.
definitely.
That was a question that just came up right now. I was just asking. My question has to do with regards to professional services. I was going to ask about what the line item was or how it's being spent. I didn't hear anything about the allocation of how much it would like just to cover the fees of covering the people that are actually ticketing. So the ticketing officers, that's a cost. Whether it's DPW or someone else, it's a cost of a service that's being provided to help collect that. I'm totally with this and I agree with this, but I also feel like that whomever's collecting those fees, that should be paid out of that same fee pot, right? So that way, if it ever came to it and DPW needed the workers that they have to do something else, it could still be kind of funded through this mechanism here or through another ticketing mechanism with regards to those particular positions. Do we have a cost breakdown of what it will cost or how much time on task those ticket officers have with regards to either the disability, handicap tickets or even the other tickets, just to have a better understanding of what it's costing us to actually get the tickets. So that way it can be taken out of those funds too as well. And that's a question, I guess.
Do you know who it's a question for, perhaps? The
So
mayor, maybe?
I guess
I'm just
whoever-
thinking, Rory,
who-
do you
yeah.
have a combined total breakdown in front of you on the collection of parking tickets where the handicap, it's all combined, right? And it goes to the
Yeah.
general fund?
Yep, it's all combined.
Yeah, and that's
It's all
a
combined.
total of,
Yep. So, and the parking enforcement officers, and it's not just parking enforcement officers. I think to get to Councilor Rivera's question, we could certainly do a little bit more analysis and provide it both to finance before they meet next week and, future budget hearings. And the reason I say that is I can tell you right now, we pay about $100,000 annually for our 2 parking enforcement officers,
yep.
right? But they're not the only ones writing tickets, and their jobs aren't just doing parking enforcement.
Right.
So we'd have to drill down a little bit more,
The set
Counselor. but
numbers.
Yeah, we can get that for you. We'll have to do an analysis. It's not as clear cut, but it would be a pretty simple thing to do now that we know it's being requested. I'll make note of that.
Yeah,
And
Yep. So for me, it's just like I'm with it, and I'm in total agreement with all of this. Like it totally makes sense, but it also makes sense that like whatever time on task is our ticketing officers are doing with regards to, or not just ticketing. If it's police too, if they're doing police tickets, giving the $300 tickets, like some of those costs are offset with the tickets itself too. And then whatever's left over, obviously it's for that. But like if there's a way where we can do the analysis to find a set number to kind of like reimburse the departments for those costs, just in general, it would make sense to do that. So that way, if ever DPW says I need these people to do whatever, you can still have your ticket officer through other ways, right? Through the ticketing fees, through handicap, or through the ticketing fee of the other ways. Because it's not just handicap that's usually the handicap or disabilities commission that's utilizing the system. It's also regular parking tickets or whatever else they're doing. They're also utilizing that system. So for me, it's like, what does it cost for the time on task for the disabilities commission and also for the other one? So that way we can understand and then kind of reimburse those costs. But whatever's left over and whatever money needs to be utilized in whatever facet or way that it can be, I'm within. I totally agree with it. Thank you, guys.
And if I could just add, as Rory has said, I think, breaking those apart and looking at them, how can you create a budget if you don't know exactly what's coming in, even within normal guesstimates? Also, as Rory has said, looking at past years. Also, when you collect tickets, they aren't always followed through with. You can give out a ticket handicapped that's incorrectly given. I've been in that position before. So there's a difference between all tickets and all tickets in which they've actually received payment for. So maybe this is also a good time, for us to kind of coordinate and see what that real process is. I will say, though, when I submitted, I'm trying to think of whether it was, I believe our auditor initially gave me information. I actually was given a long printout of all the actual tickets and which officers gave them out. So they do keep track of that, and you should be able to see who is actually doing the enforcement. And I would also say this is part of their job. It's enforcing the law. So that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Councillor Greeny? It's okay.
Just quickly, isn't there a separate fine for a handicap violation than there is for the other parking tickets? I think the ordinance says it's a much separate. So to break down that information, it shouldn't be too hard. Just take a look at the amount of the fine.
Sounds like we'll have an opportunity to discuss further at Finance next week, which is awesome. Very great questions, everyone. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Mayor. We're going to continue to move forward. We've still got about 9 departments. We've got the Board of Health is up next, page 4041. Tim, I see you on the Zoom there. Thank you for your patience. Good evening.
You hear me?
Yes. And Councilor Rivera, your hand is not up again, right? Just want to make sure. Okay, thanks. Sorry.
No.
Okay. All right. Welcome, Tim. And if there's anything that you want to highlight first, feel free. Otherwise,
okay. So in personnel services, we have negotiated wages increases. We're cutting the substitute nurse due to a few factors. The ordinance wage is only about $22 an hour, and currently we have shared services with South Hadley and Chicopee, and that nurse helps manage disease surveillance on when Debbie's not here, when our public health nurse is absent. We cut the auto allowance by 1 employee due to the animal control vehicle. The gas for that vehicle is now billed to the DPW, and then we are invoiced by them. You won't see that listed in the 2024 expense because we just got billed on, we got billed on 3/10/25, but we didn't see that on the budget there. It's under fuel and expenses now. And then an increase in 1 employee reaching an employment milestone increases the line item of longevity. That's for personnel service expenses. Our animal control contract, this is the big one with TJO. It's been increased to $72,000. It hasn't been negotiated since fiscal year 2017. And their operating expenses have increased 46% at $612,000. The city of Springfield has been absorbing this cost, and they have reevaluated the contract to better reflect the increases in labor and operating expenses. Holyoke is not responsible for fringe benefits or their vehicle expenses. In 2024, we had 442 calls for TJO in the city of Holyoke, 32 police assists, 29 investigations of abandoned animals, 62 investigations of animal cruelty or neglect, 223 stray animal calls, 37 of those needed medical attention, 207 animals needed to be cared for in a shelter, 100 were reunited with their families, 73 animals adopted to Holyoke residents. Everything else is exactly the same from last year. There's no increases in anywhere else.
Thank you, Tim. And just for folks following, the Animal Control Services object code is 53103. That was mentioned there. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Greeny.
Yeah, Tim, that I was going to ask you about that $70,000 increase on that line item, but apparently it's operating costs, et cetera, that has created that. And we have 5 different codes, and I have difficulty seeing the codes, but there are 5 sanitarians of different. Could you just break down the different functions or the different jobs of those 5 sanitarians?
Okay, I thought you guys might ask that. So a sanitarian 1, they're assigned more straightforward housing cases, assigned more trash and litter. Everybody does a little of everything, but they're assigned more of the trash and litter complaints. assigned often to problem properties for consistent evaluations and enforcement. They do a lot of the food truck complaints, graffiti, a lot of the ordinance violations. Sanitarian twos are assigned significantly more difficult housing cases that also might require the building department. We don't always know those cases right when we get the complaint, but if we read the complaint and it seems like it's going to be a significantly more difficult case, I usually will assign it to the sanitarian 2. But sanitarian 1s and 3 and a 3 can also be involved in that. It's just that's what I try to when I'm evaluating a complaint. There are sanitarian 2s are also more likely, because of those cases, to make court appearance on behalf of the city. They have to learn soil evaluation and percolation tests for our septic systems, pool inspections, food truck and complaints, and food establishments. Sanitarian 3, that's the assistant director. They, manage the staff in my absence. They do a lot of the code review. If I need help with some code review, if I have some significantly big issues, they do the MRVPs. They do the septic review with me for septic plans. All the sanitarians are taught pools, but they'll kind of oversee it if we get calls to schedule septic, food code, or pool. They'll schedule that with the request. Public health nurse is advocacy, foodborne illness investigation, administers medication, works with schools and organizes wellness drives and vaccination clinics. Then we have our clerks. They do all the clerk food permits, burial permits, billing, invoice, budget. They take a lot of the complaints, MLCs, mail, record keeping, website, and vacant building registry mailings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, Tim, back to the TJO piece. Are you familiar with what is their formula, how they come up with the number for Holyoke?
Yeah, they actually, I believe I printed it out. It's per population. It was at one time, I think when they did the original, hold on, I have it somewhere here. I printed it out. I figured there would be a lot of questions because of that increase. I believe it was about $4 a person per population, and they upped it to $6. I'm just trying to find this here. Yeah, the fiscal year 17 rate was $4.35. And now it's $6.15.
Yeah, that's.
They increased us in Chicopee 41.4%, and their operation expenses, I believe I said 46%. So they take on a lot of the fringe benefits for the employees and the maintenance.
Well, I'm glad their employees got a lot more fringe benefits. My problem with this whole thing, and I've mentioned it over the past several years, is their formula is based on population. So a town like Longmeadow that has a per capita income of $1 million a person is not affected by this, but a city like Holyoke is affected in a much different way. And I don't think their formula, I think they need to somehow prorate or look a different way at how they go about what they assess the different cities. This is, if you say we had I listened to the total 500 cases that they handled here in Holyoke between all the different problems, and we're gonna spend 200 some odd thousand. I don't have my glasses on right now, so and a $72,000 increase, right? And I know damn well that our own DPW is picking up a lot of the animals that they're supposed to be taking care of that are hitting the streets and stuff like that. They're stored in a freezer down at the DPW at the old incinerator plant, and it's just not right, the formula and the tremendous amount we're paying for the amount of service that we're getting, especially with So what would happen if we just paid what we feel our city can afford to contribute to the TJO?
Well, that's the contract. I wouldn't, I wouldn't be able to make a call like that as far as that goes. I think without researching a backup plan on if you want to move into a different direction, I wasn't aware until maybe a few months ago that this contract was like stale at this point. We would have to, I think it would be in our best interest to take this on, but if the council wanted to research other avenues we could take without eliminating some of the services until we had a plan in place on a direction we we're going to move into.
What I'm saying
That
is
would be my thought, because obviously this is what I know for animal control. We'd have to look into a different, like I said, different avenues for it, because as far as it goes, they pick up the animals. They sometimes have to give medical care. They have vets on staff. I would definitely. I think it would be problematic to just end it or try to short them on, or shorten the length of the contract without a backup plan.
Yeah. Does animal control also cover? Are they supposed to be taking care of bears wandering in the backyards and down on Maple Street, or?
No, they don't. They don't do that.
They don't.
They do domestic. We do professional services for that, and that would be, I believe it's Raymond. I gotta look.
And
we have a wildlife. We would take that out of a professional health services line.
And they don't do anything about the Holyoke wild Canadian geese flocks leaving.
No.
I mean, I'm serious. I'm serious about this. They're leaving excrement all over the soccer fields, all over the baseball diamonds, all over the streets of the city. I mean, this is a health problem. But
Canadian geese.
Enough for the TJ. I've got my answers. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Bacon?
This is just an aside, because it would be a lot of work, but it might be worth at some point talking with the collaborative and looking at it as a service contract rather than a per capita, because it sounds like our use isn't really going up. So maybe if people were buying what they're using rather than per capita, it might just be a better model. But it would take quite a lot of work to do that analysis, but it might be worth it down the road.
Something in my shared services group, South Hadley, in not today's meeting, but my last meeting, South Hadley was talking to Chicopee and I about the significant increase, and suggesting that maybe we could evaluate that, but that was something that had recently come up, and obviously the budget had already been done, and it would take some time to figure out if there was a viable path forward in a different direction to save some money.
Right.
At this time, I don't have that option. That was literally probably 2 weeks ago.
Right, I hear you.
We discussed that.
Yeah, for future consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All righty. Thank you,
All right,
Tim.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate your time. All right, up next is the Emergency Management Department, and that is page 27. And we are joined this evening by Jeffrey Trask. Hi, Jeff.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, so this is page 27, and if there is anything that you want to briefly highlight for us, please do.
Nothing really has changed much in this budget, other than the fact that we did, we did raise the expenses for reverse 911, and that is because the price for that system has gone up, and it also allows us a little bit more features in terms of being able to target neighborhoods with that system. So for those who aren't familiar, the reverse 911 system is really the system that we use to send out the text messages and the robocalls anytime that there's a significant event happening in the town. So, again, it's just something, it's a necessary tool, and every year the price goes up a little bit, as you can see in the, in the budget history. So this year they are adding additional targeting features, which gives us more options when we're looking to notify the public. Other than that, we've also added $35,000 in here, and that is to transfer essential communications equipment from the old soldiers' home to the new soldiers' home. So being one of the highest points in the city, it serves a good purpose in terms of hosting antennas. So once that project is finished, that $35,000 will be used to transfer that technology from one building to another. The other item that went up a little bit is the other supplies that went up about $500. And the reason we had asked for additional money, I think we had originally asked for $10,000, but the best we could get is $2,500. And that is because due to the cuts, with FEMA and some of the cuts coming down from the federal government, the city would receive $10,000 every year. And I believe, I've been in front of the council before for the acceptance of this grant. And it's really an equipment grant that we use to fund response equipment throughout the city. So we bought shelter trailers, we bought portable traffic lights, we'll buy gear and equipment for our command center, we'll buy gear and equipment for our volunteer team. So, it's kind of a grant that we use to cover odds and ends that aren't necessarily covered by other budgets or, other funding sources. So that grant is in jeopardy. So we're trying to make it up a little bit, in different ways. So we are looking for other grants, but again, that's why it went up just a little bit. So other than that, I think the budget is pretty much where it is.
Thank you, Councilor Graney.
Yeah,
Thank you.
quickly, budget item 53421, you touched on the communication services. Is there any red tape that's going to be involved in making that transfer from the old soldiers' home to the new one?
No, I don't believe so. I think it's kind of hung out there for a little bit, just waiting for that project to be finished or at a point where that communications equipment can be transferred over. That was the quote, and because the mayor figured that it would best live in the emergency management budget because it's multidisciplinary, so it's police, fire, DPW. So I think it really serves all of the radio communications within the city. So using the emergency management department is kind of the banner for that, to kind of cover that expense.
Will there be a break in operational services?
We also have our fire chief here as well, who's willing to help answer that.
Oh yeah, Chief. Yeah, go ahead. You know more about it than I do at this point.
I think, just totally fine.
Sorry about that, Counselor. That $35,000 is actually for the service contract for all of the sites. So what we have is a service contract for all of our communication sites throughout the city, and also the dispatch centers, and also the contracts for the software for the dispatch centers for fire, police, and then DPW, and now emergency management also is on that. It's actually going to be a more significant cost for the transferring of the equipment at the soldiers' home. I brought that to the mayor as part of our capital outlay. He's just trying to see where that money's going to come from. That's actually closer to about $230,000, and it's moving everything over new. It's not, we're not going to move the old 10-year-old equipment over. It's going to be updating the equipment at the soldiers' home. Also, there should not be a break in anything. It should be up and running as soon as they're ready to demolish the old soldiers' home. Right now, we're using fiber between Mount Tom and there to create that link because the new soldiers' home is actually in the way of the microwave antenna. But that's where we're at with that. I just wanted to make sure I came up and talked to you guys about that, just to make sure.
So we're talking $230,000
when it comes time to move the equipment. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chief, for clarifying that. I wasn't sure if that was the expense for the transfer. I know that was talked about as part of that public safety communication services money. So this is just for the PSAP licensing.
No, it's that and the maintenance of all those. If we have
In
something
sites,
go
okay.
down at one of those sites, it gets them in, gets them repairing it. We don't end up with a bill for it. So that's
Right.
kind of like a service contract for your vehicle.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to note too, and while the chief's up there at the podium, when the fire department gets their new radios, emergency management's going to inherit the old system. So the old system's not going to be thrown away. We're going to use it for our emergency management services and as an interoperable frequency that we can use in order to coordinate incidents. So we're gonna take the old system and kind of use what the best of the worst, right? You know what I mean? We're going to try to get as many of the radios that are still serviceable and put those to use to coordinate different incidents that we work. So whether it be the parade, the road race, the fiestas, whatever events are happening in town that we work, we're going to put those radios to good use. So when that time comes, we're definitely going to try to salvage what we can.
Thank you.
The DPW will also remain on that DMR also.
Yep.
Councilor
Great.
Bacon, did you have a follow-up question?
Yes, thanks, just quickly. So this 35,000, was it originally in the fire budget or DPW? Or?
So here's how it happened, Counselor. When we purchased when we actually had it's probably about 2017, we had bonded, I think it was $1.8 million, and we did the conversion to the digital system.
Mm-hmm.
That actually came with 3 years of the maintenance. The years were actually, they came with like 5 free years of the maintenance contract. That expired back in, I think, 22, and we were throwing this, you got this bill now, here, pay it. I think it was going into fiscal year 23. So we all had to find the money within our budgets to pay it. After talking with the mayor about it, we had determined last year to have it land in emergency management because it's like an all public safety contract.
Okay.
We all use the site. So the mayor actually put in last year's budget for that, and it's just moving forward this year.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions for this one, so thank you very much, gentlemen.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Council.
Alrighty. Up next is Council on Aging, which is pages 42 and 43. We're joined by Neve this evening. Welcome. You can come on in. And as always, just make sure your green light is on. And yeah, if you'd like to highlight anything, feel free.
Hi.
Hi.
Hope everybody's doing well this evening. There aren't a lot of changes really, except for one significant one, which is that we're trying to add a part-time custodian position that will be housed at the Council on Aging as opposed to through the DPW. We actually received a transfer to do that this year. Another personnel change happened kind of simultaneously, and I've needed some time to assess what the need really is, but we will be posting that position soon, so it is budgeted in the coming fiscal year. I have some concerns about, some of the cuts in the expenses area, some of the mayor's proposals, but they're challenges that I've been dealing with for 10 years, and I always figure it out. So that's really what I have to say.
Thank you,
Questions?
Neve. Councilor Graney?
Yeah, just quickly, Narve, I was happy to see that line item 51106 was in there because that's been discussed previously in council and through the Council on Aging and so forth. So I'm happy you put it in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Councilor Bacon?
Just quickly, what is the percentage change from last year or this year to next year in your budget?
So what I had proposed was actually a 1.99% expense increase.
Okay.
That was so it has to be, I don't know, because I don't see it on the sheet here, but
I can tell you right now.
it's now less because there were some small cuts made by the mayor.
Okay.
And anything that's increased in the personnel services is by contract, so I focused
Okay.
on the 2%.
So you must have had some transfers in, because the number that we have in our budget book is lower, so that's all. That's what prompted my question.
Possible.
That's okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
I just wanted to make note, and just Neve, so you're aware, the cut in the energy as well as the water and sewer, I get projections from both HG&E and the water department.
Okay.
So that's what it is. So they'll forward me a list of projections at each of our public buildings, and I just pop in the number that they gave me. So I didn't necessarily cut it. I just put in what they project it's going to be.
Well, that's the energy line doesn't surprise me, honestly, but the water and sewer does, because I'm going to go over that this year. So that's interesting that's based on projections.
And also too, when it comes to the utility lines, and everybody know, and you guys know this, it's always, you balance it at the end of the fiscal year, like they're projected. You don't really know what exactly it's going to be. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. And then we just balance it out at the end of the fiscal year.
Right.
So.
I mean, some of the other ones that are, a little concerning, but like I said, I figure it out. Building, repair and maintenance, buildings and grounds, that is, that number that I proposed is what we will need to spend. And that's just based on what I'm spending this year, and it's a service that has to continue.
On buildings and grounds,
Yep.
So
am I correct to think?
that is 52500, if folks can try to remember to use the object
It's a
code.
$300 cut. I'll figure it out.
There's
No, it was just, that's, but
the mayor was signaling me, that's why I put on the mic here. We'll get to it more in depth when the DPW is here, but there is, just so everyone's aware, there's a considerable increase specific to the senior center and repair and maintenance. Last year was budgeted $30,000. The mayor is proposing $50,000 this year for repair and maintenance for the senior center, specifically.
And that is appreciated and much needed. We're in a building that is now 12 years old. We've been able to slide by, I think, as one of the newest buildings in the city, but that time has come and the bills will need to be paid. So I'm really glad that is happening in the DPW budget.
Councilor Bacon, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm just a little confused looking at these numbers here, and I hear what you're saying about the increase from your perspective, but just in the budget book that we have, for last year, it has a figure of 621,752 compared to this year, the 672,320. So your actual must be higher than this last year budget number that I'm looking at.
Absolutely. So remember, we have essentially a $15,000 increase for the part-time custodian.
For this year. So it's in addition to the 621 that we're seeing in this budget book? Because I thought...
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
This past, in fiscal 25, what was budgeted was 15.6.
Yeah.
What's budgeted for the coming year is 32,625.
Okay, so this was exceeded. Okay.
And then
It's just why the numbers are different, that's all.
Understood.
That's just what I'm trying to get
Yes,
clear.
yes, and
'Cause
I-
we did things mid-year, so it
Correct.
changed it.
That's correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Of course.
Anyone else? All righty. Thank you, Neve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for all that you do at the Senior Center. My mom loves you. All right. Up next is procurement, aka purchasing. And that's page 4. Alrighty. We're joined by Jamie. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Alrighty, so page 4, if there's anything that you want to highlight briefly? Otherwise, we can get into questions, but don't forget to turn your microphone on.
My microphone's on. I think that it's pretty cut and dry. It's my budget's not huge, even though I support the entire city, which is, it's ironic.
Pull it down. Yeah, that's good.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Loud, so I was trying to like put it away. So
Totally. It's not you, it's on TV.
I do think that I had asked for a little bit of an increase in the telephone line because of supporting additional positions. I just would err on the side of caution, but I feel that that's a safe number, and if there's a little bit of a shortfall, the mayor and the auditor are always really good at, we're not talking big numbers, like little numbers.
And telephone, just
dollars, so.
for those paying attention, is object code 53410.
Additionally, central office supplies worked out really well. I think that we're comfortable in that budget. We're gonna come in, that supported the entire city for about the whole year. I did make an error, in-state travel, if you look historically, so, I didn't realize that that's where Easy Pass gets paid out of. So if you look at last year, in-state travel was higher. And remember I told you, Mayor, I forgot. But so that, there should be about a $1,500 difference. Just for transparency's sake, but again, such a low number and a big budget. I think that at the end of the year, if it is short, we're not talking 20, 30, 50,000. I'm talking like 1,000 or 2,000 is discrepancies, which is very small numbers in the bigger scheme of things. So those were the only things I wanted to point out. Everything else is looks great. And if anyone has any questions.
All righty. Anyone have any questions? All right. That's great. That's fine.
Awesome.
If you do, you can always reach out to Jamie. Thank you. Great to see you. Let's not get cocky, guys, all right?
We could think
Still got the schools here, Sean. Hi, Sean. All right, up next is Wistariahurst, page 50. Wisty in the house.
Yes.
50. You're welcome.
Thank you all so much for having me. I hope you all have been catching all of our news coverage. We've been getting like front page coverage.
Yes.
It's been fantastic.
Love that.
So basically our budget's pretty much the same. We did get a position cut back during COVID. I'm always going to ask for it, but I know that a lot of departments have needs. So I'm sure when the time comes and we can make it happen, the mayor will do what he can, and hopefully y'all will support that position getting put back in at some point. The other big jump up was I tried to keep everything in my expense line as same as possible so I could help offset the cost of the increase in water. Every year we go over budget. We do have to maintain a full city block. We have beautiful grounds, and we do host a lot of events on site. So the water bill can be high depending on drought season. And then I do my best at the end of the year. If I have any remaining funds anywhere, I shove it into the Holyoke gas and electric bill because we tend to go over every year. It's an old building with old windows, and we do get cold, but we put on sweaters and do the best we can. Also, some of the updates we've done this year with grant funding, we got Wi-Fi in the building this year, thanks to the Community Foundation. And then we've also done, thanks to the CPA, and Preservation Mass, we've gotten funding, and of course the mayor and the community development office working really hard to get that retaining wall hopefully restored. And Victoria, our on-contract engineer, has done an amazing job negotiating sort of the parameters for that contract to try and get somebody to do that, because she's failed to meet the bid standards multiple times. So we're really, really thankful for the hard work that everyone's put on that. And purchasing, of course, Jamie's gone, but I'm gonna give her a shout out. We really appreciate all of her hard work. And then we've also we try to be really inventive at Wistariahurst. We do a lot of our events with donation funding. And then we also opened up a new room this year that's been closed since the 1970s. One of our rooms had severe water damage, and I did not have funds to fix it, but I've always wanted a tenement room example to showcase the working class history here in Holyoke. So we did reprogram that room. I did it for under $500. And while I can't work that magic on every space, I was very excited to do that this year to help represent another portion of Holyoke's history here in Wistariahurst. We're also working on an immigration experience room where kids and families can come in and grab an identity and kind of walk through the room and see the process of becoming an immigrant in this. And we're working on a migration room as well to talk about migration from Puerto Rico and the South. So we're really excited about the things that we're doing. And yeah.
Great. It's awesome. Thank you. Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. Just one question on line item 53009. I think I got that right.
Contracted administrative
my
services.
glasses on the
Yep.
contracted administrative services. What are those?
So that's things like website management, anything that if we're doing an event and we need help with certain aspects of it, like we have we're doing a Juneteenth event, so we have somebody on contract to help run that event because we only have 3 staff members. We also do that for other things on contract, like we did a redesign of our logo, so we paid somebody on contract to do that, so we don't have to have anyone in-house doing those things. Just expenses like that.
Okay, I see you've only, it's not updated here, but as of the halfway through the year, only $400 had been spent.
Yeah, so our busy season is starting right now, so that's usually, we'll start expending most of those services at this point to start getting some of that revenue spent. But not all of it probably will get spent. It'll probably save some for the HG&E bill, to be honest.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot too much, but
No.
The busy season, it was July through December through December, so it included the busy season, the $400 so far.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, so we usually are kind of calm in January, February, March. April, May, June is when we start really picking up. And our Juneteenth, we have a big Pride event coming up. We did a Mother's Day market, so some of those expenses come out for those events.
Okay.
And we actually will be paying another, to maintain our website and all of that. That bill is coming out as well for our website maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Not seeing any online either. Alrighty.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Good to see you, Megan.
Good to see you all.
All right, up next is the fire department. That is pages 22 and 23. Hello, Chief. Come on back in. So, 22 and 23.
Okay.
And if you want to highlight anything that is worth noting, go for it.
Okay, we have a couple things to talk about. The actual budget increase for personnel, everything, the mayor had us do a 2%. They're in negotiations with both of our bargaining units, both the deputy chiefs and the local 1693. If you look, we changed what we're doing with deputy chiefs right now. We're attempting to run with 5 instead of 6 this year and kind of test programs, see if it's going to work out, see if the costs of overtime, the increase in overtime is going to work as a savings with the cost of the actual deputy chief. On top of that, we're going to see if we're actually able to staff the way we need to, and if we're able to accomplish those things, then we'll continue to go with 5. If we have an issue, we would just need to work on a transfer if it ends up not working out, but we're anticipating it's going to work out. The other thing you'll see that's new, a supervisor of motor vehicles. So what we've done is, if you remember back in 2003, going into 2004 fiscal year, we eliminated our repair division at the fire department. It was done by mayor at the time. He tried to do a central repair. It ended up not working out great. Back in, I think it was 2018, we were able to, in collaboration with the DPW, hire an EVT mechanic. What we found was 2 things. At the same time, Engine 2 had closed, so the captain from Engine 2 had got assigned, basically that position got assigned to oversee the vehicle maintenance division. Their lack of really automotive knowledge and everything was definitely something that was missing there. So what we were trying to do is we eliminated that captain position and we moved that funding into what would be the motor vehicle supervisor position. And the goal is there to have like an A-level style technician who can repair basically everything. So what we want to do is bring all these repairs in-house. What we realized this year is we had to send an apparatus out for a very complicated repair. And we ended up running up about a $15,000 bill and they didn't even fix it. So we ended up having to come back and continue working on it because we had to pull the plug at some point on that before, I mean, it seemed like it was going to be like a never-ending cost, and most of that was all labor. They're getting about $200 an hour on labor at these shops. So we're thinking if we have that style of technician, that level of technician, we can eliminate, those outside labor costs. There's a lot of other things we're looking to get them certified to do. But if we did it with the EVT at the DPW, we'd be afraid that once they had those certifications and got that from us, they would leave. We want to have a position that pays enough to retain the person and have them not look to move on to seek higher income somewhere else. The other thing they're going to have to do is manage the fleet. We have a pretty robust fleet. We have 9 apparatus, 3 pumps, 3 what would be considered like a quint, which means it has a pump and a ladder, and 2 ladder trucks. We also have like an older, what's being restored apparatus they maintain. Plus on top of that, we have 16 other vehicles within the fleet that they maintain. We have 2 boats, we have a Kubota. And what's happening here is it's actually more than one mechanic can handle. So the goal with this is to have us have the supervisor motor vehicles and still have an EVT mechanic out of the DPW working who's more of like a C-level technician to low B-level technician. That's when you talk about those levels, it's the kind of work they can actually do. Like an A-level can handle anything from advanced drivability diagnostics, electrical diagnostics. When you talk about the different levels, like a D level is like a lube tech, a C level can handle like maintenance, brakes, suspension, and light work, maybe some light engine work, and then a B level can do all those things plus some engine work, but they usually don't have the skill level to do that advanced diagnostics. So what we're trying to do is build up our maintenance division and do more in-house. We want to do our ladder testing in-house. And those are the certifications that if we get them and we help them attain, I'm afraid they're going to leave if we did that with just the EVT mechanic. Plus, at the end of the day, I'm not sure they would have the time with the rest of the workload. I mean, they maintain all of our equipment, they maintain our ladders, maintains all of our tools, all of our power saws, all of our generators. You know what I mean? So it's more than just the motor vehicles that they maintain.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor Graney?
Yeah, Chief, just one thing kind of popped out at me. It was item, and they're so small.
That's why I bring mine up on here.
I have the same problem as Councilor Sullivan over here. There's nothing, maybe it's our youth, It's 51302, I think. Hazmat overtime.
Yes, sir.
It looks like that's kind of a big increase there, up to 41,000.
Yes. Okay, so what hazmat overtime is there's 2 things about hazmat. We don't pay for it. We front load the money, and the state hazmat reimburses. It's like a 10-year grant program. But the reason you see the increase, we went from having 1 member on the hazmat team to 4. So we had 3 people appointed in this last fiscal year, which is actually a really good benefit for the city. So what we've done is we've moved them around. So we actually have 1 hazmat technician that's on the hazmat team on every group we have now. So it gives you that technical expertise on each group. You'll see it also when you go down to, let me find it. Give me a second, Counselor. 51910, the hazmat team standby. That's a stipend they get also, but again, paid for by the state. So it's like any grant. We put the money in. Once we spend it, the state reimburses us and it comes to the general fund. So anything hazmat that you see on there, it ends up being a net zero. We spend it on the personnel. We submit to the state pays us back and it goes into the general fund.
So this must take personal training for these positions, I would.
To get on the team, these individuals ended up going to the hazmat training, which it's a pretty significant program. I think it's like 80 hours of training. And then they have to do that and get certified as a hazmat technician in order to even be considered for the team.
And basically, there's a cost to that, I would assume.
Well, when they did that on their own. So it was their own time, it was their own effort, and they do that because they want to get onto the hazmat team. So all these people that are the 4 individuals on the hazmat team actually went to that training on their own time, took time off from work to go to the training, and they did it, to basically better their career and give more to the city. And they got picked up by the hazmat team, and that's when it pays for them to have done all that training on their own.
Good, like going to school.
Now, when they go to training, yes, they get 24 hours a year they have to do, but they do that as part of their hazmat team drills and everything, where they get paid now and we get reimbursed. But when they first did the 80 hours of training, they did that on their own.
So basically, it doesn't involve all personnel like CPR or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, everyone's trained on hazmat, like operation level, but that's just basically limited things they can do. A technician can do everything when it comes to a hazmat incident.
Now, just one idea of a hazmat incident like that. I think it was a couple years ago, the propane truck turned over up on Route 91.
Yes.
Would they respond to something like that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rivera.
Yes, it's just it's still on the hazmat team. Okay, get you some. Relax. So it's still on the hazmat team question. Just so we fund it and they reimburse us the whole team, everything. So like even like when like benefits and all that stuff too.
They reimburse us for their hazmat overtime, and they reimburse us for their hazmat standby. So yeah, they don't pay us for the individual. It's only those 2 line items they reimburse us for.
And if, let's say this ever were to no longer be a grant, would we still have to continue this or?
No. And again, I don't foresee it not. It's a grant. It's in a grant, and it's paid through the insurance companies. So there's actually a fee from the insurance companies that goes to the state, and that's how the state budgets this. So it's not even really the state's money. It comes from the insurance industry.
Okay. No, it's just if anything, it's just trying to figure out how in the future we make sure that we could take this on if it ever disappeared, but it sounds like it won't. So that's good. No, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Yep, no problem, sir.
Thank you. I have Councilors Devine and then Sullivan.
Hi, Chief. The other day, there was a spill outside of St. Jerome Cemetery that went all the way around and down Dwight. Was that hazmat? I don't know what the liquid was that...
It probably wasn't a team activation. If they can confine it, then either it depends on the size, it depends on what it is. It's hard to say because I'm not even sure what it was.
Yeah, it was only on one half of the road.
If they're able to mitigate that without, and then even when it comes to like reportable amounts and what becomes like what's going to trigger the EPA, because a lot of times it's just an EPA thing, and then you have to have a company like Clean Harbors come in and clean it up, things like that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Sullivan?
Yep, thanks. Chief, so the grant that was in the press was for 1 person. We're guaranteed to get it for 4?
The grant covers the city for as many members as we have on the team. So what happens is we sign, I think we did it about a year ago, Mayor, 2 years ago, we re-upped the 10-year term. It's not for the amount, it's not for just one individual or who's on the team at the time. It's anyone who's assigned to the team from the city of Holyoke.
Okay. So, question for the treasurer then?
Sure.
So, how do is this in our budget also for anticipated revenues, these grants?
Usually for these grants, as we see in other budgets, they require us to put the full amount in, and then as money gets brought back in, it either becomes free cash or it would get transferred into other budget lines, with the approval of the mayor and the council. So, like the PSAP grant in the police department, there's a few other grants that are very similar to this where we have to budget the amount up front, if that answers your question.
It doesn't. I understand that we have to budget the amount up front, but are we also budgeting the anticipated revenue?
Not necessarily, no. I'm not saying, I'd have to double check. Again, the auditor puts those numbers together, but we can certainly get that information before you guys take the final vote on the budget.
Right. Well, it won't affect this portion of the budget, but I think it affects how we look at the overall program. If we're not accounting for, if this is just one example, if there's other ones where we're paying up front, but we're not anticipating including those
Recognizing.
as budgeted income, all right? But we'll look into that further.
Okay. Anyone else? Councilor McGrath-Smith?
Thank you. Just seeking clarity on line item 51780, the non-contributory annuitant. I don't even know what that word
That is the very last person on the old pension system. So what this is,
Make sure your
your
microphone.
This is a dependent of a deceased firefighter. I believe they have special needs, so they got their pension, and this is the very last person of the old non-contributory pension system.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could,
Yeah,
Councilor Sullivan.
Treasurer.
It's all right. Auditor Tanya Dobiak just texted me, and she said they do book it against the expense, so it does get budgeted that way. Yep. Thank you, and thank you, Tanya.
All right. Hi, Tanya. Anyone else? All righty. I think we're good. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Okay. Up next, we have the War Memorial, 51, page 51. Come on in. Okay. There we go, 51. And welcome. So, if there's anything you would like to highlight, please feel free.
Excellent. Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity. So again, I am Larry Rue, and I'm here representing the War Memorial on behalf of the commissioners. I first would like to start by saying thank you for the continued support to our veterans and our historical building, the War Memorial. Our budget is pretty much the same as it was in years past. One of the things that I wanted to thank and contribute to is our goal was to be able to ensure that the War Memorial's building was being utilized and bringing it back to where it was several years ago. Over the course of the year, with the help of the city of Holyoke helping us with our services, our expenses, we have been able to provide services to the senior citizens for walks during the winter. We've been able to host graduations. We've been able to obtain new tenants, as well as bring in some revenue for the general fund by hosting private events and wrestling events that continue to this day to provide support to the city of Holyoke. The only changes that we foresee are changes in the cost of utilities, which I know that they are averaged out throughout the year. Thank you again for assisting the War Memorial with any of our previous requests with our repairs. We're fortunate that at this time we don't have any outstanding repairs that are in need. And with that being said, we're very excited to be able to be sitting here as a commission and having the War Memorial available for use, rental, and to host any events that the city and our surrounding communities would like. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great news. Any questions, councilors? It doesn't look like it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and for being here this evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right. Personnel, page 10. Welcome. All right. So if you have anything you want to highlight for us, feel free.
So I know Meg made a comment earlier to just go over anything that's increased. So I'll do that. And if you have any questions about anything else I'll be happy to talk about it. So I did ask for $50,000 in consulted services. 4,100 of that is the NAVIX confidential complaint line, which was rolled out this year. And to keep that up, we have to pay for it. The remainder of that 50,000 is for the Bank W contract for our Munis, now called ERP system. We've come a long way, but we still have ways to go with the codes and things of that nature. I have a list here that I'll pass out so you all can read it, actually. If you wanted to pass it down.
Is this list something you could email Jeffrey for the folks who weren't here or are remote? Thank you.
And so although I requested it in my line, the work is not unique to personnel. It includes payroll, treasurers, auditors, oftentimes the fire department, police department, and DPW. It's helping create efficiencies in processing pay, tracking accruals, paying out accruals. We're now able to see our liabilities in real time instead of having to gather all this data and do manual calculations. And then the second thing that went up was EAP, Employee Assistance Program, and they haven't increased their prices for years, and as everything, it's going up, and it's also being used a lot more now.
Great. All right. Yes, Councilor Graney. Yes, so let's see.
53009 is contracted services.
53009 contracted services. And that's the one that you mentioned is for the
NAVIX.
The confidential
complaint line and
complaint
the
line.
Munis ERP consultant.
The 50 grand was what? I didn't quite get that.
So 4,100 of it is for NAVIX, the confidential complaint line that we rolled out this past year. And then the remainder is being requested for Bank W, which is a consultant for our Munis services.
Okay. And, right, any?
Excuse me, 4,100 or 41,000?
4,100.
41.
Yeah. So then the 46 or whatever the remaining balance would be for Bank W, 46,000. But NAVIX is only 4,100
And what's the other 46?
for the Munis consultant for the rest of for fiscal year 26.
Okay.
Are you good, Councilor Sullivan? You good? Okay. Councilor Bacon?
Can you go into a little bit more detail, please, about the consultant relative to Munis and how many departments it's serving?
Yeah, so some of the items are on this list that I gave you.
Okay.
But, just for...
like the highlights, I was just wondering if it...
Yeah.
Would it normally be sitting in your department, or would it normally be in an accounting department?
So I think ARPA paid for a large amount of it this past year, right, Rory?
Yes, and there's, once I'm in front of you, there's a little bit in my budget. This is specific for finalizing the upgrades that we have in our various departments. So the auditor has some, I have some, personnel has some, all to kind of finish up projects in 26. We don't expect this to be an ongoing item. We're just budgeting. Budgeting for fiscal 26 since we don't have the grant funds that we had previously.
So you're seeing this 46,000 as a one-time?
Yeah, it's a one-time thing. I think, so the one of my personnel specialists is like a subject matter expert as Rory and his payroll person. And so I believe by the end of next fiscal year, we'll be pretty independent of needing the consultants. But because Munis hasn't been used to its full capacity in 26 years, I think 1999.
Yes, I've been one of the fans trying to get us to use it for years.
Yeah, so there's like so many things that you may or may not understand, but like the pay codes and the job classes and all these back end things, they were kind of scrambled up. So we've done a lot to align them and
Yeah.
create systems that, I think I mentioned last time, the fire department, Dale said she went from processing payroll for 3 hours to taking 5 minutes. So it is working, and it's not just, in my
This is why
department.
some of us were so strong on that 10 years ago.
Yeah, I
you know?
heard, and I could just
And-
imagine
and
where we
soon-
would be.
The resistance was extreme.
And soon, we'll have
Let's just say.
Munis and the municipal side work in tandem with
The schools.
the schools munis. So we're getting there.
So we'll have a savings. We're exploring with Anthony and Sean, merging them with Rory's leadership to be even more efficient. So, yeah, it's exciting stuff.
There are some good things in the modern age. Thank
And the Municipal Modernization Act.
Oh. Anyone else? Anyone
We're all
else?
doing so well.
Alrighty, I'm not seeing any other questions. Just make sure. Okay. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you all. Have a good night. I hope you get
Thank
home
you.
and
Thanks
have dinner.
for being here. All right, we saved the best for last. Welcome to our friends from the school department, Sean and Anthony. Nice to see you in person, Sean. I don't know if I've ever seen you in person. You are shorter than I thought you were going to be. Sorry. Yes, Jeffrey sent it around. Does anyone need a hard copy? Thank you, Sean. So for those tuning in, the school departments, the budget itself is on page 30.
What page is that again?
Page 30. And then do you want, are you going to go through your slide? Do you want to share that? Do you want Jeffrey to share it on the screen? What would you, what's your plan? Oh, thank you.
We're not going to cover every slide.
Okay.
But if he wants to put it on the screen, I can call out the slide numbers that we're going to go through.
Yeah, and Jeffrey, is that possible? Is that okay?
Or I can join too if there's a way for me to do it.
That's probably better, Sean, if he allows you to present. That way you don't have to say next slide, next
Yeah,
slide.
would it be easier if I just join the meeting here and mute?
You just make sure your speaker and your
Are muted, right?
are muted so you don't echo.
Yeah, let me give this a shot.
Madam President.
We're joined by school
Yes.
committee member.
Who's also the chair of the finance committee of the school board.
Thank you, Counselor, or Committee Member Wallahan. Thank you for being here.
Sorry, I just need to connect to Wi-Fi. Jeffrey, I just sent a share request.
You should be all set.
All right, while Sean's pulling that up, I can get started. So I know that you guys have a budget in front of you that basically has some pretty high level categories of personnel services and other expenses, and then all of our assessments that essentially we get money from the state and then have to pay out for retired teachers' health insurance, school choice, and charter tuition. But I want to start off by just thanking everybody here. I want to thank the school committee for all their support and their work on the budget. Mr. Wellahan has been working with Sean and the finance team as the leader of the finance and operations subcommittee, has really helped support and guide all the work that we've been doing leading up to this point. Many of you know that there's a lot of communities that are doing debt exclusions and facing layoffs and facing some really challenging times in the school department budget. And we're lucky enough to have really thought through how we were going to be spending our ESSER dollars, the federal money that came post-pandemic, and did it in a way that, we knew that we were getting Student Opportunity Act revenue over the course of 6 years. And we wanted to make sure we were smart, that we were strategic in how we invested that money, and that we could accelerate a lot of the initiatives that were part of the Student Opportunity Act, and to avoid sort of a funding cliff, which other communities are now facing, because we had the forward thinking to just be smart with those resources. Sean's done an amazing job. We're lucky to have somebody of Sean's caliber. He's just super strategic and has just done an amazing job. I want to start just naming, there's a ton of slides in your packet. And, the reason we do that is because I believe, the budget isn't just a bunch of numbers that you see on paper, but it's really an expression of your values, and what you invest your resources in is how you can tell the community what your values are and what's important to you. We start off the presentation with a bunch of slides on our strategic plan. And the only thing that I want to lift from this is that one of our core beliefs is that students are at the center of everything we do. And that's how we've developed this budget. Similar to how you guys are calling in department heads, we have a very decentralized budget process where we meet with every single department head and go through line by line their budget. We meet with every single principal, and they have their own budget hearing, and we sit down and go through line by line their budget, their staff allocation, and the discretionary money they have to develop a spending plan that meets the needs of their students in their building. One of the things that I wanted to go over, some strategic investments that we have, Sean, on slide 8, if you can. Just to give you an idea of what this budget accomplishes. So we are in the middle of two collective bargaining agreements, one with teachers and one with therapists, and we are very confident that what we have in the budget here is competitive with surrounding communities. With this budget, we did not have to touch class sizes. You may read in other communities they're having to increase class sizes. We've maintained relatively low class sizes. Our target is anywhere between 14 and 22 for elementary, 15 and 22 for middle, and then 19 in the high schools. And we feel good about that. We haven't had to touch that as a result of ESSER funding going away or anything like that. We've invested in art, music, and PE in every school. And many of our schools have more than those electives. One of the things we were able to accomplish this year is, as I mentioned earlier, principals actually get to develop their budget from the ground up. They get a staff allocation based on our target class sizes, and then they get some discretionary money, and we were able to increase that by 5.5% so that schools some additional money that they can think strategically on how to meet the needs of their students. We have math and ELA coaches in every building, and we have math and ELA intervention teachers in every school as well. For social emotional supports, we've expanded our Opportunity Academy program. Some of you may have read a press release that we had last week. We have the highest graduation rate that since even prior to receivership, when we were down in the 50s. We've now reached over 77%, and I gotta say, Opportunity Academies is a big reason why that's possible. We're re-engaging kids that would otherwise be dropping out and creating a path for them to graduate. We want to expand that program because that program typically targets students who are overage and undercredited and at risk of dropping out, but we know that we have some younger learners like in 9th and 10th grades that might not be undercredited or overage but need a different type of path to be able to make sure that they can graduate on time. And we're planning on expanding that program.
Anthony, can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
We're going to have a community meeting on May 28th at Metcalf from 5 to 6 p.m. because OA is moving to the Metcalf building next year. It's in the mail now to notify neighbors, but anyone's welcome. And we'll have staff, the principal from Opportunity Academy. I believe Counselor Bartley's planning on joining, and school committee member. What word is that for school committee? Yeah, Yadelet will be there, and then we'll have other staff from the district to answer any questions the community may have on that program and that move.
Yeah, we're in addition to that, we're strengthening our mentor program with middle school students. We have about, I want to say 27 mentors. I personally am mentoring 2 kids in middle school, one of the most rewarding experiences that I've ever had. But we do know that, our mentors could use some support on best practice and what should we be doing with our mentors. I think we've spent a lot of time building relationships and having conversations, but we're looking to strengthen that mentoring program so that our mentors can be more effective and help out some students in the middle school. We know how critical those ages are. All of our schools are equipped with guidance and adjustments counselors, which we've increased over the years using ESSER funding. And this is the first year where, we made a commitment to this council that once the new school was built, that we would pay up to $500,000 of our share. So we do now have a new cost share agreement, and this is the first year we've implemented it, which shows the school department giving the city money to over $500,000 to go towards that bond payment. One thing that's new in this budget this year is normally we've had a school resource officer at each of the high schools, so 2 high schools. We are looking to get a third. Essentially, it would be the school resource officer supervisor, but we're looking to make sure that there's more of a presence in both of our middle schools. Now we're going to have 2 big middle schools, one in Sullivan and one in the brand new Peck. And the police department has been super responsive to our needs, and we just want to stamp and solidify that so that we get that third resource officer to support in the middle schools as well, not just at the high school. We have some high quality professional development. One thing that's new this year and that we continue to invest in for next year is mentors for our new teachers. So in this budget, we are able to allocate funding so that every single new teacher in the district, first year teacher in the district, has access to a mentor that they meet with regularly and kind of help support them in that first year, in addition to all the coaching that they get from their coaches and their principals. Those are on the next slide. You'll see we continue to fund our family engagement coordinators. Those are critical to building connections with families, to carry out a lot of our attendance efforts. and just to create a welcoming environment for families and for them to have somebody that they, a familiar face that they can continue to connect with in addition to their teachers and principals. We still have funding in this budget for teacher development programs, and making sure that we're able to recruit educators to fill the vacant positions that we have. And we still continue to have about 400 preschool slots between half-day and full-day programs. We were able to maintain those. Lastly, on the last slide around the strategic investments that we made is extended learning. So we're going to have summer programmings for all grade levels, and some after-school programs at Morgan, McMahon, and Donahue, as well as our vacation academy. So one of the things that a lot of our students takes advantage of is during those school vacation weeks, some of them choose to accelerate their learning and participate in academies, which just to kind of help them catch up and get, instead of staying home, continue with their learning. And I'll kick it over to Sean.
Yeah, and I'll just do a handful more slides. So Anthony always gets to say the fun stuff, and then I get to say all the costs that are going up. So that's what I'm going to do. So our first section, salaries, going up about 2.8 million or 4.4%. Most of our new money is going into salaries, mostly in the schools. And as Anthony mentioned, we're not adding a lot of new programming. We've had Opportunity Academy is sort of the exception where we're expanding it. Most of it's just maintaining what we have in our staffing allocation methodology for each school, and then making sure we have enough funds for the new contracts or for existing contracts. We do use school choice also to support the budget, so we're using about 1.2 million of school choice for FY26. Supplies and services are going up about 478,000 or 4.3%. This is mostly due to a couple of grants that when we were building the budget, we were in the final year. We don't have them yet for next year. One was turnaround. We had $750,000 of turnaround for FY25. There may be some funding available for next year, but nothing solidified at this point. And then one of our BAR grants from the BAR Foundation supporting our high school. We were in the third year of a 3-year program. We're also trying to seek additional funding there, but when we built this budget, it wasn't settled. So what we did is we looked at all the expenses that were funded on those grants, determined which ones we needed to maintain, and those were brought over to the general fund, which increased the supplies and services section. It was mostly curriculum materials and things like that. The retired teacher's health assessment is going up 10.5%. We don't have control over that. That's a state assessment. The 10% is pretty close, actually, to what our local health insurance is going up, and better than what many communities are going up. So it's a large increase this year, larger than the previous year, but I think it reflects what's going on with health insurance. Out-of-district tuition is going up. Should I switch mics? Am I too close?
Just back it up a
Close.
little.
Is that
Yeah,
it? Better?
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
You guys were just staring at me. Let me do it for a while. Out-of-district tuition increasing 12.2% or 687,000. So this is a combination of, we project about 5% tuition rate increases for all of our schools. It's a large number, so 5% is a large increase. But those rates are approved by the OSD, a state division, each year. And so we have to budget for those increases for our out-of-district placements. We're not anticipating, this is so much nicer, by the way. We're not anticipating enrollment increases in out-of-district placements. We always assume a couple, but not significant increases. But we do plan on the rates going up. And we also included in this number is vocational tuition. That's an area where we have seen an increase in some of our vocational numbers going to either Westfield Tech or to Smith Vocational. So we're taking a look at that. We're reviewing those applications super carefully. Dean Tech has amazing programming, and so we're really highlighting that. We are expanding enrollment at Dean, which will grow over the next few years. But that's one cost that's also in that number. And then charter and school choice tuition is going up 849,000. Charter, our enrollment's actually been pretty flat or decreased a little bit, but the rate for charter has gone up significantly. One thing that people don't realize is that charter tuition rates are actually a reflection of what your district spends. And so as we've been getting Student Opportunity Act money and we've been able to spend more on our own kids, that actually increases the charter tuition rate as well. So the charter tuition rate has grown significantly since Student Opportunity Act started. And then school choice, we have seen a little bit of a bump in school choice enrollment. And when I looked at the history, kind of ebbs and flows a little bit. But we have seen a bump in that enrollment. That's a flat tuition rate of $5,000 per kid, so that doesn't change much. And then, so the big increase for next year is transportation. So we're projecting it going up by about 10%. This includes charter transportation, which is an assessment to us from the state. We would anticipate on an annual basis about a 5% increase just in the rates. Our contracts with Durham and Vanpool go up about 5%. So sort of a baseline increase from year to year would be around that range. So the other 5% for next year is primarily made up of McKinney-Vento. The big thing that hit us this year, and that's reflected in next year's budget, is the rate that Springfield pays for McKinney-Vento transportation. So we share, the way McKinney-Vento works is we cost share with our neighbors. So we share a lot of routes with Springfield. And the students that go to Springfield, we use the Springfield contract. The students that come to Holyoke from Springfield, we use the Holyoke contract. The Springfield contract, which is about 40 plus routes, doubled. Their transportation rate per day doubled. So it was related to a bid they did. We didn't have time to budget for it for FY25, so it's just hitting our budget for FY26. But that increase alone accounts for the majority of the extra money. And then we are seeing some increases in out-of-district routes and things like that, but the McKinney-Vento transportation was the big one.
Excuse
Good news, bad news. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Just quickly, is McKinney-Vento, it's still door-to-door, isn't it?
I think it could depend. I'd have to follow up with our transportation manager.
The vans are, but we definitely have some McKinney-Vento students that just ride on our buses if they're within Holyoke, and there's a bus stop nearby. We don't add a van just because it's McKinney-Vento. So we could have some McKinney-Vento students that are doubled up with a family, right? And they could be living with an aunt, on Pine Street. And just because they're McKinney-Vento doesn't allow them access to a van. They can just hop on a bus stop that we have nearby. So we're, in the past, that wasn't the case. That was one of the things that we kind of clamped down on over the years, and some of the students don't even want to be riding on vans. They'd rather be on the big buses. But where we have students that actually live in another community and come to Holyoke Public Schools because they were displaced at one point, or they are in, or they live here and they're going to an out-of-district school, those are usually door-to-door because we don't have bus stops set up that are going to those other communities.
Just another quick question. The budget, and you probably haven't got to it yet. I'm sorry, I had to
no worries.
Leave for a sec. Is the school choice budget seems to be very, very high. You have to pay tuition for people who go to school out of town, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have a ballpark figure of how many students you have to service like that, Superintendent Soto?
Yeah, I think there's actually a slide in there, so let me take a quick look.
I can go to it on the screen. Excuse my scrolling.
Yeah, so it's slide 73. We have about 113 students that are school choicing in. And then we have about 445 students that are school choicing out. That number has been relatively flat for since 2020. I mean, it's gone up slightly, but it's been relatively flat. But we do have, a significant amount of students that are living in other communities and choosing to come to Holyoke Public Schools. There's about 113 of those.
So the difference is about 300 students.
Yeah.
And Councilor Bacon, did you have a question that you wanted to ask now, or?
Well,
it's fine.
it's sort of general in nature and not precisely financial. But I was listening and I had looked at the slides before the meeting, and it seems like you've been able to keep your goals relative to support for special needs and the size of the classes pretty much within the ranges you were looking that you wanted to have.
Yep.
And what I'm wondering is, tied to this budget work, are there outcome goals for grade level proficiency, particularly in the elementary grades, for the children's ability to read and do math and those proficiencies? Given that we have the structure and the process in place, and given that we've seen some alarming overall statistics about how far behind, in general, not just Holyoke, but in general, so many of these students are we tying goals to each year increase?
Absolutely.
Efficiency, and is it somehow hooked in?
Yeah, I mean, this entire budget was aligned to our strategic plan, and our strategic plan is aligned to exactly what you're saying. Like, we want students to perform better, as you know, being a city councilor in Holyoke, there's other factors at play, right? One thing that I'm really proud of and that I want to just highlight is we've seen, in addition to our graduation rate, which is higher than it's ever been, we've seen some significant growth in our youngest learners. We made a strategic investment over 3 years ago and we partnered with Hill for Literacy, and we've gotten support from the state through a grant, and we've gotten support from the Bar Foundation through a grant to provide some really intense professional development for our K-2 teachers around the science of reading. And in doing so, they've received professional development in the science of reading, and they've also received coaching in the science of reading. And it's amazing what some of our youngest learners are doing. And that's going to have a significant impact on student achievement results, because if we can get kids to read by the time they hit third grade, that's a game changer. And I do want to shout out the Davis Foundation as well. They just gave us a 3-year grant, close to $900,000, because they were so impressed with the work we're doing around early literacy, and they wanted to help. They said, what can we do? And one of the pieces that we've been missing is this high dosage tutoring. So we partnered with the Davis Foundation, who gave us, just under $900,000, and this company called Ignite Reading, who also is very passionate about early literacy. And we have basically a lot of our first graders are getting high dosage tutoring from this Ignite Reading group. They're partnered with a tutor, and they receive 15 minutes of intense tutoring a day. It's the same tutor. We try to find the right marriage between the tutor and the student. So you could have a Haitian Creole speaking student that is part of the Ignite Reading program. They're learning English, they're not teaching them in Haitian Creole, but when they see a familiar face and they can say hi to the person, it does so much for that relationship. We just released a video. I encourage you to take a look at it on our website about the Ignite Reading program. But we've seen kids grow from the kindergarten level reading all the way to second grade, and they're still in first grade with just starting that program in November. I want to say we started it. So this is the first year that we started it, and we got a 3-year partnership. We've also received a grant through the state for PRISM grant, very competitive grant. I want to say only 15 districts received it, and that's going to help us create a literacy plan for the next 5 years. And part of the reason we were selected because of how far along we are in that investment that we've made in early literacy. We really do have some strong best practices in terms of the strong curriculum that we have in place, which wasn't the case 3 or 4 years ago. We had different curriculum at different schools. We went out and found high quality grade level curriculum and then mirrored that with strong instructional strategies. So, we partnered with the Bar Foundation again and brought in the Relay Graduate Education School to just give us some really good strategies that we can share with teachers on how to improve the quality of instruction. So having that curriculum with the strong coaching is going to have a significant impact. I think one thing that we struggle with is what a lot of communities are struggling with right now is teacher retention. That's not necessarily unique to Holyoke. There's a lot of communities that have a lot of vacant positions and a lot of people post-pandemic that are just leaving the education field in general. And that is concerning. That is a struggle that we have. We invest so much into developing our teachers, and we struggle to keep them after like year 3 or 4, either through burnout or trying to go to another community where it's a little bit easier to be a teacher, or for whatever reason it is. That continues to be a struggle.
Yeah, and I know you do put up a lot of information, and to some degree, we all get overwhelmed with how much information there is that can be accessed. But I just do think that in terms of if the children in this last 1, 3, 5 years are starting to really increase in their proficiencies, it would be, I think, very helpful if every once in a while the council and the public got sort of like a self-report card from the school system, like showing the gains.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I do provide, so I can start sharing that with the city council. So on a quarterly
Just every
basis.
once in a while. I don't mean, every meeting or anything.
Sure.
But I don't know. It's just sometimes the visuals and we were here and now we're there are just
I think
encouraging, I would say.
So if we're just talking about MCAS scores, we haven't seen those results, right? Like but I'm a firm believer, just like I know many people in the community are, that MCAS is just one measure, right? It's one measure,
I
but
agree with
on a
that.
quarterly basis, we do share with the school committee just an update on where we're at relative to the strategic plan and the goals that we set out, and where we're at with student proficiency with other things other than MCAS. So I'd be happy to share that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have some way of measuring something.
Yeah.
I don't, whatever way you choose, but it just seems like that would be a helpful thing to tie.
I can think about that and then reflect and for sure share some information more regularly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've got Councilor Rivera, then Councilor McGrath-Smith, and then Councilor Graney.
Yeah, thank you. I think for me, first of all, it was a great presentation. A lot of the good stuff that's going on throughout the district, we notice it and we can see it. And for me, with one of my kids in the system and one about to get in, ready to get into the system soon, I can kind of feel it too as well. I think just speaking to the teacher retention thing and people like leaving the field, it's across the country. Teachers are feeling like they're getting the short end of the stick. So, like, regardless, that's just an issue across the country. We're not, compared to other public servants, they don't make nowhere near as much. So, obviously, no matter what, that's going to be an issue for us in the public field. Whether it's Holyoke, Chicopee, or Springfield, it's no matter where you go, it's an issue until we change that. But I think for me, where I'm at, I didn't hear specifically, and maybe it was in the class sizes or in the Opportunity Academy. But for me, I think it's around the special education and the IEPs, right? It's my understanding that we have a huge demographic that is made up of students that are on some sort of individual plan, right? Education plan. And I believe it's a very huge chunk of this of the population. So for me, it's about how are we designing our future, right? Our future learning plans and our strategic plans around this specific demographic as well. Not to say that you're not incorporating them, right? But it's not, to me, it doesn't feel like, and it's just maybe a me thing, but like I just listening throughout the whole process, I haven't heard like what initiatives stand out for like the future, or what type of plans we have. Because if it'd be one thing if it's like a small percentage, but to my understanding, it's a pretty huge chunk. So if I heard wrong, or if there's anything around, if you could speak to specific initiatives around trying to make sure that we meet certain goals around these students, the specific demographic that I'm speaking of, just because I know from my own experience, you could start with something, and then by the end of the school year, you might not have that service anymore, and you can't make up that learning that's lost, right, throughout that process. I know it's owed to the student and it's owed to the families, but it's not going to be ever reimbursed or given back, right? So it's like, what initiatives or what steps are we taking to kind of like either prevent or work towards to incorporating some of these goals within the day-to-day? Because I'm getting asked questions regularly about some of the kids that are on IEPs or on specific individualized plans. I don't know all the specific terminologies. I don't work in a district anymore, and for me it's different. But ultimately, I'm just trying to get like a better understanding so that when I'm asked, I can have a better explanation or I can elaborate more with some of the parents and explain to them that we're getting to the service, or we're getting to providing these services these certain ways or these particular ways.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Rivera. It's interesting you mentioned that because we have two focus areas for next year, and one of them is exactly what you're talking about. If you look at our strategic plan, there's so much involved, and in fact, we often get feedback from principals and feedback from teachers that it just feels like there's too much. So we've been real reflective of that feedback and tried to narrow our focus over the course of the last 3 years. But it's become very apparent that this priority area that you see in front of you around inclusion really has to be at the forefront. We've seen such significant growth amongst our English language learner population. We have not seen that same level of growth with our students who are on IEPs. One thing that's changing for next year is that the special education department is going to be reporting directly to the assistant superintendent. So the assistant superintendent will have academics, school leadership, and special education. And I think that in itself is going to make a huge difference to make sure that our special ed department, while focused pretty heavily on compliance, is also aligned to what's going on in academics and around school leadership. The reality is that one of the, we've been trying to teach best practices around instruction to our teachers. And part of that best practice is making sure that they have high quality lessons, that they're monitoring student data, and that they're based on that monitoring of student data, that they're adjusting their reteach lessons and adjusting their teaching accordingly. One thing that we haven't been able to layer on there is making sure that as part of those plans that learner variability is a factor in there, and that's going to be a focus for next year. So I know that I've said a lot there, but one of the major changes is that we're going to make sure that there's alignment between what's happening in academics and what's happening with our special education department. And one thing that has to happen for sure is we got to look at how our special education students are performing. We got to pull that data and where those students are being successful, find out why they're being successful and what those teachers are doing, so that we can share that with other teachers and pull those best practices together so that we can come up with a strong plan. We did have a consultant come in last year to review our special education department and make some recommendations, and we're kind of chipping away at a multi-year special education improvement initiative that we have going on. So we're going to be entering year 2 this upcoming school year, but we're going to have a strong emphasis on making sure that we're taking a look at that our students with who are on IEP specifically, and figuring out the best practice and best ways we can support them, both in the classroom in a gen ed setting, and as well as some of our students who might be in a sub-separate program. We've invested heavily in curriculum in those areas, but we want to make sure that, if we're holding professional development to teach best practice, that it's not just for our gen ed teachers, that our both our ELL teachers and our special education teachers are involved in that learning, so that when they are writing these IEP goals, they know what's going on in the gen ed setting and they can support all of our diverse learners.
Thank you. And then the last thing I would just say is, again, everything that, and I speak from my own experience, all the services and everything I've received have been good and great. I just, that's the other piece to me, is the academic piece, right? Just making sure that that's all coming along with it and falling in line, but also having the understanding and the inclusive piece. So I appreciate you mentioning that and bringing that up. And thank you.
Thank you. I have Counselor McGrath-Smith and then Counselor Greeny.
Quickly, I wanted to express my gratitude to our school leaders and teachers and all the work that they have done around the science of reading. I can speak as a parent to how different the education that my kindergartner is getting from the education that my son received when he was in kindergarten. He's in 4th grade now, and it is such a world of difference to see. Teachers have always done their very best with the materials that they had. Right? It was not for a lack of love. It was not for a lack of wanting to provide the right education to kids. But what my daughter is getting is systematic and intentional, and she is such a strong reader already as a kindergartner, and also likes reading. So kudos to everyone who's doing a lot of that work to make sure it's the right curriculum and teachers know how to use it, because it is a really big difference. I want to second the teacher shortage, and I want to just go a little bit further with that. And I know it's going to impact you and all of us as we head into contract negotiations, all of that. As part of the school that I work in Springfield, I work with our Pathways program. And in order to get the state to help you implement a pathway in your school, it has to fall underneath a category, underneath the Department of Labor stats, to show that it is an area in need, that there are not enough people to hire into that profession. That's why the state is going to come in and say, here's this additional funding to help you make this kind of vocational pathway-like program within a regular school. And education for the state of Mass is not even on the first page, and you're looking at hundreds of professions down the line. Education in Western Mass is in the top 5. So it's really also uniquely hitting our area in a way that, yes, it's hitting us nationally and it's hitting us at the state level, but it is a concentrated issue in Western Mass in a way that it's just not elsewhere. And as we know, I think our state delegation is doing a good job working with us, but often, like, it being a huge issue for Western Mass doesn't mean that it's the spotlight issue that all of our legislators are thinking about down in the Capitol, right? Or even in the State House in Boston. So there's that very real reality and gratitude. I know, like, Teacher Appreciation Week just occurred. I think it's really important. A lot of times, civil servants are willing to accept working for less than they would if they went into the private sector, if they know that they are able to do good work and they feel they are appreciated and there's real gratitude. And I know that the district, through a lot of the things that you're doing, is trying to show the appreciation you have for the people that are doing the good things, whether it's the Cone of Excellence, whether it's the spotlights, the highlights you're doing. Those things are really important. And thank you. My last piece is a quick question around transportation. I saw that you're thinking about doing a pilot program. I love a thought around that, because I know that transportation is in its greatest increase is really around those unique situations for kids who need kind of that door-to-door, who need specialized vans, all of that. I know it can get very expensive very quickly. and we're at the mercy of not that many providers in our region. So I wonder about that pilot program you're thinking about. I'm also wondering about the electric school buses that we received and when they're going to come online and what the expenses might be around that, because I know that we've had issues considering where they are housed, how we can bring them online and get them going. And I also know that with the grant timeline, some of those decisions I think have to happen pretty quickly in order to even continue with that grant acceptance.
Let me give an update. I'll start with the electric buses first. So they're moving forward with getting the charging depot installed. That was sort of the first step, and that's occurring at Durham's current depot. I asked them for an update a couple weeks ago, and sort of the earliest we might see them would be January of 2026. But assuming there's no hiccups, nothing terrible happens, like that would be our plan. I'm told the funding is safe, and the obligations were in place, and that all that is moving forward. So so we'd look for those to be rolled out maybe middle of next year. In terms of costs, we're hoping it'll be a cost saver in the long run, because ultimately the buses were purchased with grant funds, and the operational costs of an electric bus are less than a diesel bus. It gets a little complicated with the contract we have, and like the length the buses have to be used. So there's going to be some details that still have to be worked out. But we wouldn't expect it to increase our costs. If anything, it should reduce our costs. So that was the electric buses. The transportation in terms of the pilot. So one of the actions that the superintendent is recommending is the creation of a task force around transportation. It's going to look at piloting our own vehicles. We also have a consultant who's currently evaluating our transportation system and identifying what we're doing well, what we could do better, where there might be cost savings. It's going to look at the in-house as well. So we believe like that report could be the kickoff for this task force to look at the pilot, among other strategies, and make recommendations to the superintendent about what to do. The nice thing with our contract is we could start that at any point. We can decrease our contracted routes as needed. So if we wanted to roll it out for the start of school year, we could, if that's determined to be in our best interest, or it could be later in the year if we need more time. But that group, we hope will start meeting as soon as we get that report and come back with feedback for the superintendent.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilor Greeny.
Just quickly, once again, having served in the public schools for many years, both at Holyoke High School and at Dean Tech, and I'm sure Superintendent Soto would recognize the Dean Tech football hat when we had football at Dean.
Go Hawks.
To make a long story short, a lot of one of the major trends in education today, to help out with perhaps what Councilor Rivera was saying, and nationwide, a lot of school districts are now going back to industrial arts in the lower grades, in the elementary schools and in the middle schools, to act as feeders for children who are interested in a different type of education, the vocational education, to push vocational education, because a lot of people are saying, well, as your media always says, studies have shown, all right, but I can't quote any study that people are looking at the trades now to make a living rather than the college experience. So I was just wondering if there are any plans to explore industrial arts as it used to be in the schools in Holyoke, to provide an interest to some of the students who are more interested in working with their hands and doing hands-on things.
Yeah, I can't say that we had plans to expand that at the middle school level. What we definitely have in the works right now is when I first started back in 2015-16, I believe, we had about 150 kids at Dean, and we had some conversations about whether or not we could sustain a program that small. There was very little vocational programming, very little learning going on, and I'm happy with how much that school has turned around. Like, I remember the conversation I had with Dr. Zreich that we need Dean to make its comeback, and this community needs vocational programming, and we made some changes, and now now we're up to about 400 kids. We have about another 140 kids that are on the wait list. And because we have that new middle school that was just built, right now we have Dean and a middle school co-located in the Dean building. So we have about 250 kids that are going to be going to the new middle school, which is going to open up a lot of space at Dean. And so we have to be real strategic and thoughtful about how we expand Dean, because if we pull, let's say Dean goes from 400 to 800 kids. Those other 400 kids are coming from Holyoke High, which has an impact on the programming that we can offer at Holyoke High. Holyoke High has a strong dual language program. We have some kids that are graduating high school, having completed 2 semesters of college already. That saves them money, that gets them experience on a college campus, and just really sets them on a path for success. So I want to make sure that we do expand Dean. But we got to do it in a very strategic and thoughtful way, so as not to impact the programming that's going on at Holyoke High, because with those 400 kids that would be moving from Holyoke High is all the resources that come with those students and all the programs. We have 3 different academies at Holyoke High. We have advanced placement classes. We have dual enrollment. We have performing and media arts. We have all these things that are very important to the Holyoke community. We got to make sure that as we expand programming around vocational, that we do so thoughtfully and strategically.
I know the junior high schools used to have printing. They used to have industrial arts, woodworking, and things like that. I just was wondering if there were any plans to kind of incorporate that interest into the middle schools to get kids interested. That's all.
Yeah, at the new middle school, because it's there's this consumer science classroom that's being built. If we can find a teacher, I know one of the things that we'd like to do is some sort of it was at Peck when I was in Peck. We had a small woodworking shop, but it was home economics that we had in Peck, and they taught kids about cooking and safety and things like that. That's one of the things that we definitely want to bring back. The only thing that would stand in the way of that is being able to staff that, finding somebody that can teach that. But we now have the space for it for sure in this new middle school.
Thank you.
I made a really great lamp at Peck Middle School in woodworking class. Yes, Jay?
Thank you. Has everyone spoken?
I think so.
Everyone's okay.
Yes.
I don't want to take your time. Thank you. I wasn't really prepared to speak. The Finance Committee, we meet regularly once a month or twice a month with Mr. Soto and Sean. Mr. Calmore and Mrs. Martinez are members of the committee. We changed our name. It's really the Finance and Operations. So we're really doing a deep dive with our school facilities. Each school in your wards has received improvements, upgrades from anything from playground equipment to roofs, HVAC systems, doors, windows, that type of some of the stuff is not sexy, but it's needed to maintain them. So we're proud of that. The budget tonight was discussed at our last meeting last week. It will be discussed again this Thursday. So I think it's a fair budget for the city. We're trying to seek the needs of the teachers, the parents, the students, the workers right here. As Mr. Soto mentioned, a lot of communities are seeing budget crunches. Belchertown tonight has an override vote tonight for $1.3 million for the school system. So Holyoke, I'm kind of proud to say that Holyoke is not in that boat. Our finances are well received. Some of the neighboring towns, Northampton, they're having a budget crunch. Amherst is having the same type of funding issues. But when you look at those communities, Northampton has received a gift from Smith College to assist them with their finances. Amherst school system has received funds from Amherst College to assist them. So Holyoke is not in that same boat where we don't have those resources. So the fact that our budget is balanced shows the dedication of our team here. And we also have like a 5-year capital plan just to maintain the school systems, maintain the facilities. So again, I just want to thank our leaders here and the city council. We talked about the electric buses. We've talked about those in our meetings for months, trying to get the transportation costs down. Me and Sean and Mr. Counil have been talking about that for months. So the issues, we know what they are. It's kind of hard to get a grasp of them and trying to fix them. Even at Beacon Hill, they can't fix them either. So we're trying. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate what you do as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any other questions or comments. So I just want to thank everyone for being here this evening. Great conversations. And our next budget hearing is next Wednesday, the 28th. And we'll see everyone tomorrow night for our full city council meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.